is Terri.
Hi, I'm Russ, and tonight we're going to talk with Terri on finding the right therapist. Terri, why is it so important?
Keep going, Russ. You're good. We're getting used to this live stuff, so.
So Terri, why is it so important to find the right therapist?
One of the things I've learned in my own therapy and along with other people's is that when you have the wrong therapist, you'll quit going to therapy, or you won't get the right help that you need, or you just might have personality conflicts and things like that. And so finding the right therapist can be really helpful. And there's a lot of things I've learned in becoming a private practice and things that I think are important to share. And I would have liked to have known.
So what are some things that we would ask a therapist? I mean, it's kind of like interviewing, for a
It
job.
is. It is. It's just like a job interview or anything. You definitely want to interview your therapist. If you're just calling and just finding out what insurance I take or a fellow therapist takes, that's not enough. It's important information if you're using insurance, but there's more important questions than that. One of the things I start with is, what type of therapists are they? Are they a couples therapist? Are they a family therapist? Are they a social worker? A marriage and family therapist like me? Those things can matter, but in truth, across the board, in the type of therapy, everybody's going to have a lot of the similarities. I know as an EMDR therapist that there are MFTs, there's LPCs, there's social workers. There's a lot of different therapists across the board that do EMDR. So I don't think that one's as important. And sometimes people think it's really important, and I personally don't think it is. Hi to the people up there. Welcome. I'm going to say hi as I see it and interact. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask those. Russell was just asking me, what is a question to ask your therapist, and we're just kind of starting that conversation. One of the things I start with the therapist in knowing is, what is their availability? If I work 8 to 5 and I'm only going to go to therapy from 8 to 5, from 6 and later, I need to know that therapist works. For me, some clients aren't going to come see me because I have a special needs son and I work 8 to 1, 8 to 2. Those are my only hours. My hours were locked around school hours because I'm a single mom and I have a child that needs my time. So that's one question. I want to counter back with you before you have all the answers. What have you found? Like, if you're looking for a therapist, what do you think you'd ask or want to ask?
Well, that's a great question, because this has been very enlightening for me. I just thought you, like everyone else, I just went down the list of my insurance providers and picked the one closest to home, and off we went. But there is quite a few, and I think what we're finding out is, what are your specific needs?
Yes.
Are you going to therapist for marriage counseling? Are you going for EMDR?
Trauma work. Anxiety,
depression, and just, so what really is your drive to go see a therapist? And I think that helps determine that as well.
It does. I think I'm actually going to move this forward a little bit so you can see us a little. So give me just one moment.
There we go.
Hey, we're a little closer. And hopefully we can see the comments. I have it set up so we can. One of the things I want to start with is asking your therapist what trainings they've done. So you talked about a marriage therapy, like couples counseling. As a couples therapist who used to do couples therapy, I have John Gottman couple therapy training, and I've done some other individual, as well as being a marriage and family therapist. Part of my becoming a therapist, I had to do clinical hours doing couples work, not just couple work, with family systems. I had to have more than one person within the family in that for family system work. So I had experience with that, but my training in Gottman couples therapy kind of took me above, here's the basic, here's my advanced in that. So one of the things I would encourage is asking, what advancements in education and trainings have they done? Because I can say I'm a couples therapist, and I am. I went all the way to level 3 in Gottman, but I haven't done a CEU in couples therapy in 3 years. And that kind of shows you that I'm not on top of that. Like, I do have the training, I have the knowledge, I have information, but that's not my forte right now. My forte is trauma. So if you were to ask me, how many CEUs have you done in trauma, I could show you. So back here, you can't see them, but at the top is my certification as a trauma certified clinical trauma professional. In the middle here is my Andrea certification, and down here is my marriage and family university degree. So I can show you those things. You can also go on Andrea to see that I'm a certified EMDR therapist. But I do probably on average about 30 to 40 CEUs a year in EMDR. Every time prior to COVID, every time there was a training in person, I went to that training every time I could. And I paid the money to really invest in myself to help me to be good. So I would ask, what CEUs, what trainings have they done? What qualifications are they continuously doing?
So like a good therapist, like for example you, if I came to you asking for marriage therapy, since it's been a while, so a good therapist would turn me away and maybe...
Sometimes, but sometimes we need clients. And so sometimes we think, I've done it, and so I've actually had clients who've tried to got me to do couples therapy again because I do have information and I share my couples information with my individuals when it's appropriate. But I turn around and tell my clients, I'm not the therapist you want. I'm not current in my trainings for that, and you deserve somebody, and you want somebody who that is their specialty. That is what they're doing trainings around. Some therapists will do trainings in everything. Again, I wouldn't want to go to that therapist because I don't need everything. But some people might. Some people might choose that. And that's, again, it's your choice of what you want. And I want to validate that with clients is I want to. I want this. I need this. You listening to yourself of what you need and that fit and trusting that. I do not want to play away from that and say, no, don't do that. I just want to give you helpful information to help make it easier, because nothing stinks more than going to the wrong therapist and going, ugh, and then never returning for years.
So what are some credentials that we would look like if I needed therapy for a past trauma? What are some credentials I would look
Trauma therapist, professional trauma therapist, EMDR, anything in regards to trauma therapy, any trainings in therapy. There's a lot of different ones, and so to give you the criteria, I'd have to pull them all out. But asking that question, what CEUs, how many CEUs have you done? When's the last time you've done a training in trauma? Can you tell me about trauma? Like when my clients call me, I talk about my experience in trauma in regards to my trainings and how EMDR works, how it worked for me, and that it was helpful. I let people know, and I tell them, hey, I'm a certified trauma professional. I let them know the trainings that I've done. There's a lot of different, I want to say it's the Hope with Andrea, that they have some individual ones with trauma. So there's a lot of different trainings to do. But this is where doing your research and asking the question, again, you don't have to ask, do you have this type of training? You need to ask, do you have training in this? And then I would secondarily ask, how much training do you? When was your last training in it? How current are you? Now I'm going to give a little secret. And I don't want to say this in a disrespectful way to any of my other therapists. But as I became a private practice therapist, one of the things I learned in filling out the paperwork to get credentialed with insurance, I could check boxes saying I did CBT. I could check boxes saying I did any of the different types of therapy. I also could check boxes saying I was a trauma therapist, or I worked with trauma, or I worked with ADHD, or I worked with depression, or I worked with anxiety, or I worked with personality disorders. I could click all of them, and there was no one to tell me I couldn't. There was no one to other than my own personal guidance of saying don't do that. And sometimes I know when I first started getting credentialed with insurances, I wanted to say yes to everything because I wanted the clients. I wanted people to come see me. I wanted the business. I wanted to grow. But I've learned that I shortchanged my clients in doing that. If you are looking for somebody who is a sex therapist, I'm not your therapist. That's not something I have trainings much in. I write about it. I've done some over the general stuff, information about it, but that's not my specialty. That's not what I'm practicing. So if you are calling for me and asking to do sex therapy in regards to your relationship, I wouldn't be your therapist. And yes, I think I have an ethical thing to say no and pass you on, but not every therapist works that way. And some people feel like, hey, I've read a book, I've went to this one-day training, so I am qualified. I just find that we do better more qualified. Especially when we have intensive things, or we're looking at years of abuses and things like that. So I want clients and everybody to be aware of, hey, sometimes you might get a therapist who's saying they can do it all, but they're so spread out that you're gonna not get the best that you could. Versus seeing somebody who's trained in family systems, or who's done some trainings and gotten into couples therapy, or done some trainings in emotional, I had to think for a moment, emotional focused therapy, which is another couples therapy. Those are the things that, again, I'd ask if I was looking for a couples therapist. And I'd ask, when was the last time you did a training? And not just a training, but in couples therapy. It's really important to specify the training in regards to what it's related to. And I don't think people think about that. I didn't when I was finding therapy. I was just trying to find a therapist. The con to that is if you live in a small town or therapists are full, what do you do? If you're really struggling, I'm going to say find a therapist. Anything you can, and then get on a wait list. Because it's better to see than not.
So what can we expect the first few visits with our therapist? What's kind of is there a pattern that
Yes,
you follow?
the first visit is always assessment. It's a lot of questions. I make a joke with my clients. I'm like, please tell me your life story. You've known me for 2 minutes. But literally it is, answer all these personal, private questions, and you've only known me a couple minutes. During my assessments with my clients, I'm honest and say, hey, I know you're not going to fully tell me everything because you know me 2 minutes. I need enough to have an assessment to give your insurance, to give my paperwork. But if we need to adjust that, if we need to change things because you finally feel comfortable and I get more information that changes the diagnosis or changes our course outlook, I'm going to do that. But for most people on that first visit, you can expect a lot of questions, a lot of going over HIPAA, going over what I would report, what I wouldn't, and safety and things like that, and hours and when you can call me, when you can't color me. Please color me red. When you can call and things like that, how to respond and how to respond and things like that, and billing are also some of that first initial. But a lot of it is also, for me, it's being friendly, letting you get to know me. In my assessments, I allow my clients before I end the session to ask questions. Ask me. And I tell them, I said, I might not give you the answer, but I will tell you, hey, for whatever reason, maybe privacy, or I'm not ready to answer that one. I'm pretty honest with my clients in regards to that. I'll be like, but I tell them up front, I ask you to respect if I say I'm not comfortable answering that question. But I try really hard to be upfront honest with my clients, and allow that to ask and say, hey, what can I answer for you? And oftentimes we get I don't know. Next is, again, I would expect at least the first 4 sessions to be building a relationship, talking. You talk about stuff, but a lot of it is getting to know each other, getting to know comfort level and the feel of each other and stuff like that. That's really primary, the first 4 sessions that you're really trying to build is that relationship.
Okay. And you brought something up that it just kind of hit me as a question is, what can I do as an incoming patient to make my first visit successful? Or should I write some notes down, or should I become?
It can be helpful. It can be helpful to write some things down so you know, because sometimes we get in front of somebody and our mind goes, and it's gone, right? And so note cards can be helpful to make sure you covered things. The other thing is to take a breath, because the hardest thing you're ever going to do, I think, some people don't agree with me, but I think every time the hardest thing is walking in the door and coming in for session. Once you're in the door, yes, it's hard there too, but the hardest thing is showing up. And so if my clients show up, then it shows me that they're there, they're present. The other thing to help to be prepared is know and let your therapist know what you want out of therapy. Going back, the other thing that we always cover is suicide. We're always asking, you can expect updates and check-ins about how is your suicidology, where are you at, have you been feeling like you want to harm yourself, things like that. we're assessing that because it's always important and it's something that we have to take care of. If there's a problem and stuff, or we have to do a safety plan, or we need to make sure you are safe in any way. So you can expect that to also check-ins with how you're doing emotionally and things like that.
Excellent.
The other thing is if there's anything major going on, your therapist needs to know that.
I was gonna say, if you're gonna make the effort to go to a therapist, this is not the time to be secret about the things going on in your life, right? Because
it's not, but at the same time, when you don't know somebody, we all have protectors, and we're not completely. It's not that you're being dishonest. It's just that you're not ready to give everything.
And it may take the third or fourth visit to the.
Yeah, and sometimes it can take longer. There are some clients that it can take a long time before I get. I've worked with clients I've worked with for 7 months, and then all of a sudden, I have one client that I worked with. I believe it was almost a year, and they came in and let me know about where they were gender wise, and I was like, not in shock, but I'd wish that they had shared sooner, but they weren't comfortable with that yet. They didn't know they were safe. They weren't ready. They had their own personal place to go. So I don't want anybody to think there's an expectation that you have to cover it right away.
Yeah. And what are some things going on in our lives that we may say, you know what? I think I need to go to a therapist. What are some
if you're struggling waking up, signs of depression, you don't feel joy in your day anymore, you're struggling sleeping, you don't feel good. Oftentimes it's interesting, we say, what do I go in? But a lot of times we know that we're off.
Yeah. We're
off and something's just not right. Which I would say also a good therapist will encourage you to get a complete well-check blood workup with your doctor. Because there are times where things can be out of sort with your body that can mimic depression. Your thyroid being out of whack can actually mimic and show signs of depression and things like that. And so it's really good to follow up with also blood workup and an overall checkup. Sometimes we go in for a physical, but we don't get a blood workup.
Yeah.
Blood workups are important. Again, if your vitamin D levels are low, that can look like depression. And so that's an important thing too, is to get an overall understanding.
Yeah. And then just my last question for you tonight is, how can we overcome the stigma of seeing a therapist? Because there is a little bit of a stigma in society still, wouldn't you say?
There is. I think it starts with stuff like this. We got to talk.
Yeah.
My answer is talk. We got to talk. We got to talk. We got to talk.
Yeah.
That being said, since you don't have other questions, there are some other things I want to share with you guys.
Yeah.
When you're looking for a therapist, one thing, it's okay to try out more than one therapist. It's okay to let the therapist know, okay, hey, I'm testing this out. I'm testing the waters. Because it's your money, it's your insurance money, it's your investment, it's your health. You want to, and you can find the right therapist for you. You might have to wait, but you can. Another thing I want to say is you can fire your therapist. I've had clients fire me. I've fired clients. It's okay, and you should know that you can do that. It's not a right fit, don't keep going. You need to find the right fit for you. Knowing if you prefer male, just like if you go to a doctor, do you prefer male or female? Do you prefer a male or female therapist? Because it can make a difference. If you are struggling with safety with males and you can only get into a male therapist, you're going to have a hard time. So knowing gender is a really important thing. The other is looking on Doppel. Well, in Utah, it's called Doppel, D-O-P-L-E. It's the Department of Professional Licensing. Every state has a licensing board. Google, type in your therapist, and search them out. Find out if they have been reported on Doppel. Find out if there's an investigation on them. Find out if they've had some misdeeds and stuff like that. And that's where Doppel comes in. I have a licensing board. My license shows that I'm active, that there is nothing on my record, anything like that. That's the other thing in insurance. It's a piece of paper. I have to show proof via Doppel that I'm not, but it's a questionnaire, and if I lie and no one catches it, you could end up with a therapist who actually has a record and you don't know. So that's why it's important to go to, like here in the state of Utah, the board of Doppel, and look up, and you can verify and look up, type in the therapist's name, first name, last name here in Utah, and it'll pull it up. You will see my associate's license if you type in Terri Moser, and then you will see my current license as a marriage and family therapist, and it says active. There's no pending or anything on that, and so that's another thing to really know is look up your therapist.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to bring up is referrals. Oftentimes, I have a lot of people who go to referrals, and I want to say, yes, that's a good thing because you have a referral, you know they like him, but you aren't your friend.
Yeah.
You might not have the same issues and things like that. So what is a right fit for you might not be a right fit for your friend. Yeah. And vice versa. And so just because somebody refers you, still do your look, still research, still do and investigate. And I say investigate with something wrong, but do those things to find that information to see if it's a right fit for you. Most therapists will take a phone call and things like that where you can talk with them and stuff, and some it's not. And again, I leave it up to my clients. If my clients don't want a phone call, they don't, potential clients, they just want to come in and be, okay, I'm not going to force you. But we talk about these things and we discuss it, and I'm always trying to empower my clients. In regards to other things to look for, where the office is located. Yeah. So the time of day that they meet, office located, those things will matter, especially if, like for me, I'm a single mom. If I have to go to Salt Lake to see a therapist, that's going to cause a lot of problems in my life. And so I'm not going to look to go that far. Another is for some people, telehealth versus not. I have a couple of telehealth clients. I actually two. The rest are all in person. I prefer in person. I do a lot to keep my office safe and things like that. But you might need telehealth for whatever reason. And so that's, again, something you want to ask is, do you offer it? What can be expected? Another thing you want to ask is, what can be expected with COVID? If you're sick and things like that, how does that therapist work and what does the office look like? The other thing is knowing no-show policy. Like I have a strict no-show policy. My clients get a 24-hour notice. If they don't cancel before 24 hours, it's a $125 charge. And that charge goes up every year. Cost of inflation, life living, and everything like that. I have some clients who don't care and they'll pay it. But for the most part, my clients follow that 24-hour. Because without, and I've actually had clients tell me I should do a 48 hours. Because in truth, 24 hours is really hard to fill that spot. Yeah. And so if you no-show or you don't come in or you cancel, I can't, in the most part, 24 hours, I can't fill that. Yeah. And I'm not making money just sitting there and growing my business and things like that. So respect, again, sometimes things happen on both sides, and so I try to have grace. But I've also found that when I have grace, I have clients sometimes who will step on that grace and want it. And so the more I follow my policy, the less problems there is. Yeah. I tend to do what happens if I have to cancel on a client, I end up giving them a free, unless it's a medical reason or something like that. But if it's not an emergency and stuff, I try to be fair. Yeah. But not everybody does that. So knowing, again, what the policy, what expectations are, that respect. And the other thing I would say as a client, going back to your earlier question, like as a client, what can we expect? I'd say be respectful of your therapist's time. Yes, you might think you're getting an hour, but we don't bill in hour increments. And so my sessions end at 53. It is 53 minutes. Please be on time, but it ends at 53 because I need that time to go to the bathroom. I need that time. And so be respectful of that time. And again, I've had to say that to clients, hey, I noticed that, and I want to be respectful to you, but I need to have you step out by this time. I need to get ready for my next client. So as a client, I'd say be respectful of time. Yeah. And I try to be respectful of time and vice versa. It's a working relationship. I feel like there was something else I wanted to share. The big one was knowing, again, that you might get a therapist and they aren't as trained. They might just say they do it and they don't have the training and certifications and education behind it to match, or they haven't continued in that. Yeah. And so I'd want to know that. I'd want to know that they're just going to every training versus I want trauma. I want to see a trauma therapist. Couples therapist. I want to know you're investing in as a couples therapist.
So how many hours a year is that investment of your time?
There are mandatory. Every state's different. There are mandatory CEUs that you have to do. I go above and beyond that. Without, you'd think I have it memorized, but again, I have above and beyond. I believe it is 24 hours within 2 years, and then you have to have 6 hours here in Utah. Have to 6 hours of ethics training every year. They added just recently. You have to do. It might be 2, but I think it's 3 hours of suicide training on top of that. That's been new. That went into place last year, or it might have been this year. So there is trainings we have to do, but again, DOPL doesn't mandate what I do those trainings in, other than that suicide trainings and other than my ethics training. Beyond that, boards don't mandate. And so my training can be anything I choose. And again, it's a good thing to find out your therapist is spending money and doing trainings and stuff. And on top of that, I'm just saying it's really important to also know that what you're going, they have the experience you want and need, because it's going to help. If you go to, but I don't want to downplay that sometimes you can get a really good new therapist who's learning and things like that. And because they're learning, they'll go to their supervisor, they'll ask questions and things like that. So even that can be beneficial, but it's a question to ask. Am I seeing an intern? Am I seeing an associate licensed therapist, which is, so the interns when you're in college and doing, associate level is your learner's permit license, and then you get your fully certified license. And so there can be some benefits to that. And I don't want to say don't go to somebody like that, but make sure that, again, that they're asking, they're checking with their supervisor, they're getting the training and things that they want. Because again, we don't get good therapists if we don't allow them to experience it either. So that's an important thing too.
And I think our common sense can kind of help guide us in that direction, can it?
It really, it can. And again, trust yourself. Trust yourself, trust what's going on, and listen to yourself.
And remember to like, subscribe, and share, as these videos will be posted on YouTube.
Yes, and please, we're getting better and better. We're still not quite perfecting this whole live thing. You'd think since I've done it before I got it, but I had to use a different. We're gonna get better. But please, again, like Terri Talks Terri Talks Therapy and Trauma on YouTube. Also, Heart of Peace Counseling on Facebook. And I believe on Instagram, Heart of Peace Counseling is on Instagram, the name. You'd think I have all my names. But again, I'll share them. As we grow and build, these things will get better. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Have a good evening. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.
And also, any questions or topics you want us to cover.
Put them in the comment box.
Please, and join us again as we perfect this, and join us with interactions. We look forward to that.
Have a great evening.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
Bye.